Hello my friends, welcome to the Wood Shop. I'm Jeff. Folks ask me all the time, they say, Jeff, what are you working on? What's going on in the shop? Well, I'm here to show you today what's on the workbench. And this is it. And you say, well, what is that? This is a prototype. I'm currently working on designing and building basically cubbies for the kids' room, for them to store their toys, books, whatever they have that sometimes, maybe occasionally, gets left out on the floor and can just make the room a mess. So what I'm doing here is, a lot of times when I'm doing a new design and I'm creating something that's in my head and I'm trying to transfer that into wood, make a design, even simply just put it on paper, what I like to do is head to the scrap pile and work on a prototype that's frequently smaller in scale, as this one is. This one is 1/3 scale for what I intend to build for the kids' room. So I grabbed some MDF that I had in the scrap pile, and I cut down some 2x2s that I had to make these connecting pieces. And so what I did is on this particular project, there are 3 different connecting pieces. You've got the center pieces with 4 grooves in them, like this. Then you've got the edge pieces with 3 grooves. They look like this. And then you've got corner pieces with 2 grooves. So I made some 3/4 scale pieces of these connectors. I cut the MDF to scale and I put it all together. And I do this to test the design, work through some construction elements, and it also helps me figure out what the best assembly method is. In this case, am I assembling the verticals, the horizontals, of which, in this case, I'm not even sure which one of the verticals or the horizontals. Does it go this way? Sure. Does it go this way? Why not? This way looks like someplace the direction you could put dolls or some kind of figurines in. And of course, this way I'm thinking cars. It looks like a parking garage to me. That's just what pops into my head. But nevertheless, I work through which way is best to assemble these. Assemble them and glue them in which order. The other thing that I was working through on this prototype is, you'll notice here on one side that the MDF pieces stick out a little proud of the connectors, and I did that on purpose. The back side, or the other side, they are flush, pretty flush. This was one of the things that kind of came through in the test assembly, was that because these grooves are fairly long, when I would set this all up and I glue them, some of these grooves bound the piece a little more, and like this side. This side's pretty tight. And so when I got the MDF piece in the connector, I wasn't able to adjust it as best I could, although I used my persuader, which I always keep close at hand. Oh yeah, that's where that should go. Anyway, there was a little bit of difficulty in getting these lined up flush on every one of these on the back side, but I had done this on purpose on this side because I thought it might create an interesting look, a little bit of depth, a little bit of something to look at with the MDF pieces sticking out proud of the connectors. What I decided in this prototype, and this is why I like to do this, because it gives me this insight in something I can physically see, touch, and evaluate by having a prototype, instead of just drawing this out on paper and imagining what it's going to look like 3-dimensional. But I found that a couple of things. One is it looks wrong. It looks like I made a mistake. The other thing is like I said, when these pieces get bound up, it was very difficult to make the amount of reveal, this space right here, consistent on every one of them. So it was very difficult to make this consistent so they all look the same, so they look like it was on purpose. So what I've decided, when I build the actual cubby unit, I'm going to make these flush so they fit, like they look like they were put together that way on purpose. And I'll still probably use my persuader. It's always good to have around. And I will probably I will be less concerned about the back side and making sure they're flush, because that's going to be covered by a back. Then what I was working on here too is, with every project, I'm thinking about how am I going to finish this. And your basic two choices are you going to paint it or you're going to stain and put some kind of finish over the top of that stain. So I tested with spraying with this one, and I grabbed some spray paint and I kind of went to town. Now, this is a little difficult to evaluate how it came out for a couple of reasons. One is my can of spray paint ran out. Secondly is that because this is on a smaller scale, the spray can was difficult to get inside of all these nooks and crannies. But when this is 3 times the size, it's going to be easier to get the can in there. Nevertheless, what I decided on, this is going to be one of the neat parts of the project, is I decided I'm going to pre-finish these pieces, and I figured out a way, and we'll get to that in another video, how to pre-finish these pieces without destroying the integrity of the glue joint. Because one of the things you don't want to do when you're pre-finishing is you don't want to cover up the parts of the pieces that are going to be glued. Because glue does not stick very well to paint or finish. So if you're going to put the pieces together here, you're not going to want to get glue on this surface here or the inside of this groove, because you're going to want glue there and you're actually going to want it to stick. Very key. Much more useful if the glue sticks. So I figured out how I'm going to do that. So that's the benefit of the prototype. That's why I like to do this. Sometimes it seems like doubling the work, but in actuality, it ends up making the final product, the actual product I'm working on, work smoother, and I get a much better result on the first time around. So here's a little preview. Oh, here's the other thing that's on my workbench, cardboard. I always kind of laugh at myself, but here's my cardboard, and you can see why I put this here, because of the glue. And I always just crack myself up because I built this workbench and I put a significant amount of finish on the top so that the glue wouldn't stick to it. But I just can't bring myself to glue a project right over my beautiful workbench. It was beautiful on day one. So I always try to grab some cardboard to put down on top of it. Nevertheless. Okay, so what do we got? So here, just as a preview of the full scale, this piece here is going to be the upright. And this is a test. I was basically testing full size how I was going to cut the grooves, the dado stack that I was going to use in order to get the opening I want to put the piece in. And I'm actually going to use a little different size blank to start with, but we'll get to that again, like I said, in another video. I just wanted to see how these were going to fit together and make some connections. This is the actual piece. I'm already cutting them out. This is going to be the upright. But that is what's on my workbench. That's what I'm working on, and I think the kids are going to enjoy this. I'm going to end up finishing this when I finish the main piece, and I will give it to the kids to use maybe, like I said, for their little things in their room, and I think they'll make good use out of it. Now, you go out to the shop and you get to work on something yourself. Take care.